Episode 56 DH. Vermont, Bennington. Rosep view, the letter writer below uses fossil fuel, not wood burning, for heat. She doesn't want to move to electric heat, which she thinks will be more expensive. She thinks that Vermont is the greenest state, probably because the Vermont's biomass, wood burning, plants are counted as green and their particulate PM2.5 emissions are not counted along with fossil fuel emissions as polluting because burning wood is considered carbon neutral because trees grow back. But the PM2.5 the wood burning plants create does not magically disappear just because trees grow back, in decades or centuries. But she recognizes that wood stoves are very polluting and says that Vermont is number one in use of wood-burning stoves. She wants low taxes. Does she want wood-burning power plants and wood-burning stoves to stop being considered renewable and stop being left out of the count of polluting PM2.5 emissions in the state of Vermont? It is unclear from this letter. She does not want to stop burning fossil fuels. Indeed, the cleanest fossil fuel natural gas is hundreds of times less polluting from PM2.5 than wood burning or coal burning. The letter writer seems to be using propane or oil to heat her home, which are more polluting than natural gas, and is satisfied with the price of these fuels, in comparison to paying for electric heat. Until recently, the cleaner fossil fuel natural gas was considered the best bridge fuel between solid fuel burning like wood burning and coal burning and the perceived far-off future widespread availability and low cost of solar, wind and geothermal powering a new electric grid. But now solar, wind and geothermal prices have plummeted, and government incentives are here this year for electric heat from heat pumps that can work at temperatures well below 0 Fahrenheit. If the letter writer knew of these new developments, would she embrace these new ways to heat her home, which are now cost-effective? It is true, as environmentalists in Vermont argue, that adding wood burning and industrial biomass burning to the ways of heating to be discarded by Vermont's S.5 statewide law along with propane and fuel oil, would hasten the development of truly clean industrial power and residential heating, such as solar, wind and geothermal. But it is unclear if the letter writer is arguing along with environmentalists. She seems to be arguing for any system that would enable her to pay less taxes and pay less for heating her home. If she is interested in greater access to health care, could that be because of health problems she sees caused by air pollution in the form of PM2.5 from the many wood stoves she has observed in use in Vermont? Vermont is headed in the wrong direction. Opinion, BenningtonBanner.com. Bennington Banner. Vermont ranked number 1 in the U.S. as a state that has the most wood-burning stoves. The purpose of our Vermont government is to listen to the excerpts edited by Rosep for brevity and clarity and relationship to the issue of wood-burning stoves emitting particulates PM2.5 which harm the health of near neighbors. Vermont is headed in the wrong direction. Vermont's House of Representatives voted 98-46 in favor of S.5, a clean heat standard that is designed to lower gas emissions by moving away from propane and oil and instead towards costly electric heating systems. Thousands of Vermonters wrote to their legislators to oppose S.5 and their voice was ignored. There are a few points that must be considered. First, Vermont ranks number 51 in the U.S., including Puerto Rico, for carbon emissions. S.5 is not an issue when we have the lowest rate of carbon emissions in the U.S. We should be celebrating being the greenest state and instead those of us who heat with fossil fuels will be punished by higher costs. Second, if S.5 continues, why are people with wood-burning stoves being looked at with this green initiative? Yes, wood is a renewable source of energy, but it is also a significant source of pollution. Vermont ranked number 1 in the U.S. as a state that has the most wood-burning stoves. I am disappointed with our legislators who do not listen to Vermonters or listen to Governor Phil Scott's recommendations, who was not in favor of S.5. Vermont, Burlington. Rosep view. This article does not mention the health effects from PM2.5 emissions from biomass, wood, burning. However, this article lists many reasons why biomass, wood, burning is PM2.5 polluting, and that pollution is not negated by the false construct of carbon neutrality, pollution not counted because trees will grow to replace felled trees within decades or centuries. The article also lists reasons why wood burning is not economical. Taxpayer-paid government subsidies hide the fact that wood burning is not economical. The wood-burning power plants discussed are 1. The McNeil biomass burner in Burlington, Vermont, is the state's single source of air pollution. 2. The city of Prineville, Oregon, promotes the construction of a 20 megawatts biomass burner. 3. In California, another biomass burner is about to be constructed in Boerne. 4. Mount Bachelor's proposed biomass burner in Bend, Oregon. 5. Red Rock's biofuel plant in Lakeview, Oregon, now defunct. The article also mentions the government action of 6, logging on the Deschutes National Forest, NF, in Oregon done to reduce wildfire. The adverse health effects from PM 2.5 emitted from wood burning mentioned in this article are, regarding 3, Boerne the same delusional remarks about clean energy made to justify construction of the plant at Boerne, California. Regarding 1, McNeil in Burlington, Vermont. Pollution. Another problem with the moniker that biomass is clean is that they pollute the atmosphere with PM 2.5 that is damaging to health. Particulate matter from burner emissions is continuous throughout the year rather than associated with one-time seasonal events like wildfires. People with asthma and other breathing issues are vulnerable to emissions. The McNeil biomass plant in Burlington, Vermont emitting air pollution even in winter. Biomass plants produce air pollution year-round, while wildfire is seasonal. Proponents argue that biomass burners operate at high temperatures that eliminate most toxins. But they don't tell the public that during the startup and shutdown phase, burners operate at far lower temperatures and emit significant amounts of pollutants during these periods. Even worse for the atmosphere and human health is that biomass burners often consume the available nearby wood and then start to include building waste, railroad ties, tires, and other materials that contain numerous toxic materials in the mix. Regarding 6, logging in Oregon is not carbon neutral, carbon releases. Logging the forest releases stored carbon. Industry shills suggest that burning wood is different from burning natural gas or other fossil fuels because it is biogenic carbon, meaning the growth of trees produces it, thus carbon neutral. Logging in Oregon easily contributes far more carbon into the atmosphere than even the worst large blazes. Indeed, 35% of Oregon's carbon is the result of logging. Overall, about 2/3 of the carbon in trees that are logged for lumber quickly become greenhouse gas emissions. Since biomass operations burn an even greater amount of the tree, like branches, the amount of carbon released is significantly greater. The green piece of the pie represents wood carbon, the amount of carbon emissions from logging and wood products in Oregon. However, this biocarbon has taken decades to centuries to accumulate but is released immediately when burned. Since most biomass operations use whole trees, they effectively release the bulk of all stored carbon. Even a forest fire does not release most of the stored carbon. Instead, carbon remains on site as snags, down wood, roots in the ground, and charcoal. Plus logging emissions are far greater than those resulting from wildfires, says OSU researcher Bev Law. When you have a disturbance such as fire, and when wood is removed and harvested and put into wood products, you have to follow the carbon, and it turns out that harvest-related emissions are 5 to 7 times that of the fire emissions in Oregon.